Ooh, ah, bah, bah, bah. What's up, yo? A little video journal action. Close this out. It's gonna shift up and top of the morning. That's when I'm recording this. I haven't even been to the gym yet. It is a fresh day. Made a shake. I've been making it. I actually was at the gym the other day, as most of my stories start in these things. I was at the gym the other day, and I started thinking about some dumb shit that I didn't want to be thinking about. I stopped thinking about that, and I started thinking about this smoothie that I made one time. When I wanted to make a different kind of smoothie at that time, but just didn't have all the ingredients I thought I had, so I had to like make something different. But not that this is like, I mean, people have had this, but oats, whole banana, dollop of peanut butter. Oh, must have. And then oat milk. You can use regular milk. That's all you need. You could also, if you want it a little sweeter, which I like, I don't like it sweeter. I like it a little bit more savory and nutty. But you can add honey, and then you can use whatever kind of milk you want. I like the oat milk because I just like it more. Regular milk hurts my stomach sometimes. But yeah, I threw one of those bitches together this morning. Oh man, oh man. I know you're not supposed to cuss at the beginning of videos on YouTube, but from what I understand, the algorithm is bullshit. Many are saying this. Got my kickstart. I will say, so this one's called Strawberry Startup. In the other video, I had the citrus one, the orange one. I gotta say, Mountain Dew, because I know Mountain Dew watches all my videos. You guys have pretty much struck out on every kickstart since the citrus one. The orange can, the citrus kickstart goes crazy. Every other one kind of mid, but this one has. I don't know if there's actually anything different. It like advertises that it has like caffeine, vitamin C. I'm pretty sure they all have that. The orange one does. The other one does. Other orange one. This one's orange too. Holy cow! Great start to the video. Great start to the video journal. Very insightful. Very interesting. I need to drink more water. That's something I've been actually thinking about this week. We should all be drinking more water. We're not drinking enough water. We're all dehydrated. And the thing is, like, it's really hard to drink too much water. So if you're not sure if you're drinking enough water or not, just go ahead and drink some more anyway. And you can tell your doctor I told you to do that if it goes wrong. But let's get down to brass tacks. What's been going on? Well, I got cheated on. Yep, I got cheated on by my wife, my ex-wife, which of course I'm now a lot more comfortable saying. And there was so much evidence that I basically got confirmation. And there was a little bit of denial at first. You don't want to believe something like that unless you're absolutely positive. But that is what happened. And no coming back. So we forge ahead. Something interesting. Been cheated on before. I'm sure a lot of people have. Something like that happens, and you're like, what could I have done different? What did I do wrong? What's so wrong with me? Which, by the way, I've seen the other guy. Not impressed. But if you start blaming yourself for something like that, then you've already lost. It's going to take you so much longer to heal, so much longer to get past it. I get that it hurts. If you're kind of a jealous person, it's going to hurt even worse. I don't really feel that jealous about it. I just kind of, I don't know, I just gave that up. I started to feel a little jealous, and I just gave that to God, and I haven't felt jealous since. And I'm also a little bit older. I think when you're younger and you just have more of that like emotional energy as a young man, it's just easier to feel jealous and maybe even kind of like possessive, which isn't always a bad thing, to be clear. It's usually used in a bad way, but yeah, you can't blame yourself. You gotta be retarded, or at least try to be. The I don't want to put this. The retard doesn't waste time asking why somebody did something. The retard is focused on what they're going to do next. You're overthinking. You know, and I could be overthinking this. I could have been overthinking this. If I was, I probably would be doing this video. I'd probably be sitting at the edge of my bed. If I had just invited, no, hey, guess what? When someone does something shitty, it's not your fault they did something shitty. Don't ever let anyone blame you for that. I have noticed watching these video journals, and people have told me this before, and I've kind of just been in denial about this, but I underpronounce my R's, especially when I say everybody. I tend to say everybody, so I sound like a little fucking baby saying everyone go crazy. And I realized talking on the phone that my brother does it too. And when I heard him doing it, I went back and watched my video. I was like, oh no, but it's true. I say everybody, so I'm gonna try to say everybody, everyone, every time. But we'll see. I don't care that much. You know, who dealt with adversity in a way that is admirable? Dirk Nowitzki. Yeah. Dirk. I think, and if you don't know about Dirk, you need to go do your research, find out more about the 2011 ring, about the money that Dirk left on the table so that he could get better teammates, the way that he innovated the game of basketball, the way he changed the perception of how talented European basketball players could be, all that kind of stuff. One of a kind of talent. I think that we need, especially men, you need heroes. You need people. And if you want to say, oh, is Dirk Nowitzki a hero? Yeah, dude, Dirk Nowitzki's a hero. You go to the city of Dallas, ask anybody there if Dirk Nowitzki's a hero. Jesus, a lot of people's hero. Whatever. I mean, one of the cool things about religion, any religion, most of them come prepackaged with a bunch of heroes that you can kind of, I think as children, I don't know. I know people have hangups on religion, especially, how you could argue that it indoctrinates children, and it'd probably be a correct argument. But I will say, when I was a kid, my dad died when I was really young, and I didn't have a father figure in my life, and so my mom would take me to church, and it did two things for me. One was it did a lot more than two, but two things that I'm going to talk about. One of the things it did is, and I don't have any of this written down, I'm kind of shooting off the hip here, but it introduced me to male mentors, male leaders who I could look up to and respect in place of the father who I didn't have. And she would get remarried later, and the guy she married, I call him my dad now. But this was before all that, so as a kid, just seeing what being a man kind of looked like, and I commend. I maybe she didn't do it on purpose, but if she did, I commend my mom for that wisdom to know that a young man, a woman, can't give a young man everything he needs. Men need each other. Men have to raise men. Otherwise, whenever those boys become men, they're going to be lacking in certain things. I was talking to a friend about this the other day, but yeah, when you're growing up, you're kind of told what kind of man you're supposed to be, but then there's no men in your life that get pointed to say like that. If you're lucky, you might. If you're lucky, you might have somebody who you're like, hey, be a man like X, be a man like Y. And I knew good men growing up, but nobody who, exemplified what I was told a man should be. And so there's an incongruence in that kind of upbringing. That's why men need heroes, though. That's why whenever I think about like greed. Of course, I'm opposed to greed on a ethical level. I think greed is as a type of evil, personally. But as a way to find congruence with that belief, I look up to a hero like Dirk Nowitzki, who was already making millions of dollars, and he said, "I don't need X million dollars. Take a certain amount. I want to win. You're not married to the game till there's a ring on your finger, type thing." So he said, "Take this money, go get some good players who can help me take down LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Kobe, Brandon Roy, the whole nine, dude." He went sicko mode. I'm telling you, if you don't know about that, go do some research. Even if I'm gonna drop it. I'm thinking of non-basketball, non-religious. Steve Irwin is one. I got the thing back there. I have a friend who gets me Funko Pops every year for Christmas, half ironically. But he always asks me, like, who might you like? So he got me Steve Irwin this past Christmas, so I got it up there. Steve Irwin, dude. You know, he's the crocodile hunter. He's this like over the top Australian guy who would tackle crocodiles. But if you haven't, go watch some of his interviews. The way that he would talk about wildlife conservation, it is so hard to find somebody who like is so passionate about what they're doing. And I actually was thinking about just like purpose, like in a general sense, not necessarily my purpose, but just purpose in a general sense, and by extension, my purpose in life, and wondering if there even is such a thing. And I was also thinking about decisions, and I actually was going to talk about this later. I have my journal notes over here, but I think like sometimes in life. So let me start with the decision thing, and we'll elaborate more on this later if I don't get too off track. When you make a decision, right or wrong, which I happen to be of the opinion that there's only few instances of life where there's actually a right and wrong decision. Usually there's kind of two right decisions that both require you sacrificing something. But when you make a decision, it kind of, in a way, because of the way life works, the decision becomes right because you make it right after the fact. After you've made the decision, you live out that decision and make it the right decision. Even if it was originally the wrong decision. You make it as right as you can. I won't go into any examples. I'm sure you could think of many, though. You know what I'm talking about. I think that it's the same way with purpose. So like Steve Irwin would say, "I believe I was put on this earth to conserve wildlife in Australia and the world. I believe that nature is so beautiful," etc., etc. By the way, I usually can't just launch into Australian like that. That was pretty good. I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that shit. But I almost feel like he understood something that most of us don't, is that it doesn't matter what his purpose is or was supposed to be, he took ownership of the purpose he wanted. And when you do that, you can say, like, I was put on this earth to do this. We don't know what tomorrow will bring or, what God or the universe's plan is. But there's something beautiful in being able to say, this is what I'm here to do right now. This is my purpose right now, is to save wildlife, to educate the public, to get funding for these zoos, all this stuff. And if you ever do some research, like in his personal life, Steve Irwin, beloved figure worldwide, but certainly in Australia. But yeah, dude, such a Chad. Another one of mine, John Quincy Adams, 6th president. I think he just did one term. I'm actually going to have to rebrush up on my John Quincy Adams lore, but just an extraordinary life. I think he's considered like the most prolific American diplomat of all time. He just social maxed so hard that he basically was just going around getting countries to like recognize America's independence, getting them to like help America. America got into a naval war with France. This whole thing, they got into a naval war with the Barbary States, which is like North Africa. There used to be a lot of naval pirates who would we had conflict with. He was, I'm pretty sure he was in St. Petersburg, which was at the time the capital of Russia, whenever Napoleon rolled up. And Tsar Nicholas, or I think it was Tsar Nicholas, the Tsar was like, please stay, dude. You're so sick. John Quincy was like, I gotta go back. I gotta. He was like anti-slavery. He like was trying to protect the Native Americans. He was just so ahead of his time. Like this is at the same time like he was running against like Andrew Jackson, Trail of Tears guy. So like different strokes for different folks, but the point is like he like his legacy isn't that he was a great president, because actually most of the stuff he wanted to do got shut down. It's that he was great outside of presidency. He didn't require the office. Like he was great in his life, regardless of what his legacy might have been. And I think there's people who think that he might have been like a super genius, or I've heard some historians say that he was the smartest president who ever lived. I don't know if that's true. Maybe he was the most retarded, which would make just as much sense. A social maxer like himself. But all that to say, in a very long-winded way, you need somebody to look up to. And you might be asking, what does this have to do with getting cheated on? And the answer is nothing. I'm done talking about that because I gave it up. I gave it to God. Like, don't get me wrong. There's feelings. It hurts. It sucks. But like, what else can you do? I have to wake up tomorrow and figure out, what am I going to eat today? I got to wake up 2 days from now and figure out how much money am I going to make at work today? Which bill do I need to pay next? Like, I got a whole life to live. And going backwards doesn't help you move forwards. Then that's the problem with the genius. Or the wannabe genius. Trying so hard to dig into the past and figure out, dude, you the past isn't the past is dead. You gotta go chase life. Go chase life. Even if you're hurting, you gotta go chase life. And so that's kind of what I'm on. Speaking of John Quincy Adams and social maxing, Jesus was a social maxer too, by the way. I'm not going to blaspheme and say that Jesus was a retard, of course, but I am. And I look up to John Quincy Adams and Jesus. And so for social maxing, my policy here lately, in terms of social settings, and I think I mentioned this a little bit before, but I've still been kind of sitting with these thoughts, is like, dude, if I don't know, if I'm unsure about, like, if someone's, hey, come do this, if I don't know, I'm just going to say yes. I find that when I think I don't want to do something and I force myself to do it, I pretty much almost always have a good time. Pretty much always after the fact, I'm like, I'm glad I went, because if I'd stayed home, I would have done basically jack shit compared to the great conversation and fellowship I got to have. Or maybe Thursday night, like, I went and played pickleball, or I went and worked out with somebody, something like that. Like, you get something out of it that you can't get by yourself. It's like in Ecclesiastes, they say, you can snap a stick, but a bundle of three is not so easily broken. Yeah, I actually, with my D&D group, we play in person a lot of the times, but we also play over the computer. People get busy sometimes. And so they were all going to meet at someone's house. Dude, I was tired. I woke up yesterday, went to the gym. I went and got some food with some friends of mine, went to the store, did my laundry. I had to clean my house, went on a long walk. I was just finishing my laundry by the time D&D was starting to roll around. I was texting like, hey, are you coming? Are you coming? I'm like, I'm kind of tired. I was like, I'm sort of tired. I think I'm just going to stay home and play from the computer, and you guys can all meet up at wherever. And I've been obviously telling the homies kind of what I've been doing lately and the moves I've been making. One of my friends texted me privately, goes, it's not very retarded of you. And my knee-jerk reaction was to be like, you don't know, bro. But the truth is, he was just right. Yeah, the retard's not like, oh, I'm tired, maybe I should stay home. He says, that sounds fun. He says, that sounds fun. So I went and got some Asian food. I got some General Tso's chicken, and I headed over. We made it happen, Captain. And guess what? Great time. Super fun. I would have had a much worse time if I had stayed at home. So just goes to show, a couple things. One, social max, say yes, chase good friends. For him to keep me accountable on something that sounds so silly probably to most people in a genuine way really goes to show. It really does. Yeah, I mean, and keep in mind, like yesterday, there was a lot of, feelings too. Oh, sorry, my body's catching up with me. Starting to come back to life here. You have to destroy negative thoughts. I'm tired. I'm sad. Oh, I should just be by myself. That's just for anything. Doesn't have to just be for social maxing. Excuse me. Negative thoughts about yourself. Negative thoughts about your house. What's going to happen tomorrow? Negative thoughts about your life. Whatever it is. Negative thoughts are the poison of the pseudo genius. Kills your mind, trying so hard to think your way into being happy, which you can't do. The retard, the meek will inherit the earth. And who's more meek than the retard? The retards, the inheritors of the earth. Destroy negative thought with positive action. I don't know that much about this. I only just learned this morning. I was reading and watching this thing. Apparently, according to the stuff I was reading, which the person saying it was claiming to be an expert in this, so, but you know how that goes on the internet. But apparently, the part of your brain that processes, I want to say anxiety or like worry, is can't be used at the same time as a part of your brain that recognizes gratitude. So, like, basically what they were saying is that whenever people would get anxious or worried, they would say, spend 20 minutes listing things that you're grateful for. In this instance, it was in a Christian context. They were saying, spend 20 minutes thanking God for stuff. But if you weren't religious, you could do it just as well, just listing things you're grateful for in a more general sense. And according to this thing, it works. It lowered the people's stress, it lowered their anxieties, it calmed them down. People were having anxiety attacks and stuff. Destroying negative thought with positive action. I'm feeling a little down, or anything. I'm going to go do something fun with the guys. The guys aren't available. I'm going to go on a walk and maybe talk to myself, ruminate on some thoughts, pray, touch some grass, grab a leaf. If I have like anger or like maybe too much pent up energy, my heart's beating too fast, I'm pacing, I'm going to the gym. Positive action. When I'm being grateful for my health, I'm being grateful that I can afford a gym membership, I don't have time to ruminate on that anger. And if I do bring that anger with me, I can use it as a cheat code. Get a little bit of extra oomph when you push that bar up, or when you go up that stair stepper, or whatever it is you're doing. And then anything that's left over after that, that's when you just gotta give it up. Hey God, I'm too retarded to be sitting with these thoughts. I need you to actually take them, please. I need you, who's at the only actual genius ever, I need you to actually take this stuff, because I don't want it. Leave that on the curve. The decision thing that I was talking about, right and wrong, and is there a right decision or a wrong decision? And actually, I'm kind of borrowing this phrasing from a few people I've been talking to recently. So, um, thank you to those people. Sorry, just straightening up some stuff down here. Uh, yeah, I basically was telling somebody that um, that I was okay to move on from my ex-wife. I was ready to move on because of what happened, and that um, I felt a little guilty about it, even though like nobody in my life is like, "Whoa, you're gonna move on." Everyone is like, "Yeah, like dude, do that." And there's more context that you don't need to know, but yeah, basically, I just I had a little bit of guilt about oh, I've invested this much into this thing being, of course, my marriage and my relationship with this person, um, and it just feels like wrong in a way to be excited about seeing somebody else maybe in the future. Not that I'm there yet, but when the thing is, and guys know this better than anybody, when you're going through a breakup, and especially when you get cheated on, um, you kind of have to like be a little delusional, right? You have to be a little extra dose of retarded. Like you have to like really think about like the whatever the bright sides are, they become you have to make them much brighter. And you're not even lying, actually. This is just destroying negative thought with positive thought. Negative thought with positive action. Because you can't just sit there and dwell on the bad stuff all day long. You gotta like look forward to some stuff. I'm gonna have a little bit more freedom because there's not the girl's not telling me what to do anymore. You know, it's Friday night. I don't work tomorrow. I'm gonna stay up a little bit later and game with the guys. I'll game till 1 instead of 11. Whatever. Or you start noticing girls again when you're married, or at least I see a girl's kind of attractive. I almost like I'm like I don't need to be looking over there. Nothing for me over there. Now you let it linger a little bit. You're like, she's cute. She is, and you start thinking about dating in the future. You start thinking about like, man, I'm happy that I'm in the gym and like working on my health because I know it's gonna make me look better. It's gonna make me feel more confident. When by the time I am ready to date, I'm gonna be ready in multiple ways. You know what I mean? Things like that. And I was just telling them I feel guilty for having those thoughts. So early into a pretty brutal breakup, and um, yeah, it was making me feel a little bit guilty about moving on, even though, again, I know consciously that I shouldn't feel guilty about that. There's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think it's the right move. And this is what it boils down to is I'm going to make it the right move after the fact. And not having made that decision, now it's up to me to et cetera, et cetera. But that's not actually what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is what they said. They said that life is essentially at the most important crossroads made up of a series of decisions. And in many cases, it's just a fork in the road where there's two decisions. There can be many, there can be nuance to the individual decisions, but in many cases, two decisions. And kind of like I was alluding to earlier, in many of those cases, neither decision feels right or wrong. It's just you have to make one, and whichever one you make, it involves the sacrifice of something by not making the other decision. So, take me for example. I'm sorry, this thing's hitting me right in the chest. I'm trying not to be disgusting into the camera, but I'm just a damn animal. So I got cheated on, and I basically have. I mean, I guess theoretically I have infinite options. I could do anything, but like realistically, it's like, do I? And in particular, this question is like, if because somebody was asking me, um, if she came back and she asked for your forgiveness, what would you do? So in that case, I would have two decisions. One is I could say to myself, I'm not taking you back because I don't trust you and I don't I can't risk you hurting me like that again. I can't risk losing everything I have. And I can't risk losing the respect of my family, for example. And by making that decision, I'm sacrificing another opportunity to be with somebody who I previously loved and who I had a lot of respect for at one time. I also am losing, the like being in a relationship at a certain stage of your life becomes easier than being single. Maybe not in your early 20s, but in your 30s, it starts to become easier when you have a partner than it is being by yourself. So I'm sacrificing that. My dog, she has the dog, and she's had the dog longer, so by right, she can say, I don't get to see my dog anymore. That's something I have to give up when I make that decision. On the other hand, if I say, I forgive you and I'm going to let you back into my life, like I would do that, then I would be giving up a certain amount of respect I have for myself, frankly, that I would have to rebuild. I would be, like I said, sacrificing the respect to my family. They're not going to trust her anymore. They're not going to look at her the same way. I would be giving up a lot of the progress I've made in terms of like I said, like some of the freedom that comes with being by yourself as a man, some of the freedom and like excitement of the future, I'd be giving that up. So no matter which one, and to be clear, I would pick the first. I would be like, no. But that's not even the point. The point is, no matter which one I picked, there's going to be some pain and there's going to be some grief because you're grieving what you've lost. Sometimes you're losing something that you had, and sometimes you're losing something that you could have had. And the way the mind works is so strange because sometimes they feel just as painful. Even if you never had something, knowing that you could have had it and then losing it can feel just as horrible. So, all that to say, when confronted with those kind of decisions, you have to manage the grief as healthy as you can. But that's where the positive action comes from. Like, I think man is supposed to be busier than we are. There's too much downtime to reflect on all the bad and all the negative. You gotta keep going. You have to fight for your happiness in this life with, you know what I mean, like a knife in your mouth. You gotta crawl through the trenches and go get it. Reinforcements aren't coming. No one's coming to make you happy. No one's coming to give you the life you want. You gotta go get that shit, man. No one cares about your dream. Your mom cares. Cool. Your very best friend in the world cares. Nobody cares about your dream until you show them why they should care. Nobody cares about your moves until it translates to something. You should the whole time. You should care about it the entire time. But you have to move. You have to move. You have to say yes when the answer is I don't know. Hey, do you want to do this? Your mind, I don't know. Your mouth, yes. I want to do this. I don't know if it's going to be the best decision for me tonight, but if it's not, I will make it the best decision for me tonight. And by the way, it's a good way to expand your social circle. Saying yes, you don't know. That's how you meet new people or get into new situations. I was actually thinking about this because I went and hung out with a friend of mine, and there was a guy there who I hadn't seen in a very long time and who I was never that close with. I don't have any problem with the guy, but it's just, somebody I didn't know very well. And I was thinking, I had a very good time hanging out with him. We watched the Night of the Seven Kingdoms and had a few beers and, just hung out, listened to some Kid Cudi. But I was thinking about, because I was watching this video and it was this little white kid, and he was giving a sermon about something or other, and I was just thinking about, man, I bet God is so happy that he expanded his grace to the Gentiles. If anyone doesn't know, a Gentile, broadly speaking, just refers to non-Jewish people who originally, in the Old Testament stuff, God's promises were like to the Israelites. And whenever Jesus come, he came for the Jew and the Gentile, the Greeks and the Romans, etc. And like, you just see like this little white kid, not Jewish, blonde hair, blue eyed, big old like hook nose kind of looking kid, just carrying water for God's message, and like God's family getting to grow so much. And there's some pain with that too, but man, I bet that feels awesome. Having even more people he can connect with and love, because he has that capacity. Humans, I've heard different numbers, but you actually only have so much space in your life for so many people. But most people, from most of what I've read, are nowhere close to approaching that limit. So don't let that be a reason you don't social max. All that to say, like, sometimes God is good enough to let me see the world through his eyes for a moment. And I see somebody who's not in my immediate circle of like friendship or immediate circle of even acquaintanceship. And for a moment I get to see like, my friends are Jews, but, I have love for the Gentile too. it's a shaky analogy, but I don't know. If I'm created in God's image, then in as many ways as I can, I want to like, take notes from the way that God sees us and God sees the world, and I want to try and see myself or see the world in the same way. So that's just me, and all that to say, to circle back to an earlier point about heroes, and it doesn't have to just be hero stories too. I think that men just need some kind of blueprint, like some kind of direction. Here's how I'll put it. You need a canvas to paint your retarded thoughts on. The reason it's okay to retard max, the reason it's okay to not overthink, is because you have a foundation. And as long as you know that you're within the lines of those foundations, you really can't fuck up that much. And it doesn't have to be the same foundations that I have. But for me, I have these foundations where I know I can be as retarded as I want in this sandbox. And, it's like I can do crazy stuff and I can go act in a way that people might think is out of character. But, like, for example, like, honesty is very important to me, like, personally. So as long as I'm not betraying that ethic, as long as I'm not going around and being dishonest, it's fine. As long as I'm not going around and, like slandering my friends or betraying my family. Things that are like boundaries for me. You create those boundaries and then you get to fucking play, bro. You get to drool in the sandbox, take a shit in there if you want, build a sandcastle, crush it, build a new one. Like, dude, that's what life like really is. Really. I was at this it's getting kind of long. This is probably the last thing I say. Let me double check. Let me make sure I'm not missing any notes that I really want to talk about. I don't need to talk about that. That's fine. Yeah. I mentioned last time my friend who's a doctor. Went to dinner at his house, and dude, he has a really nice house. He's a doctor, makes good money, and I was walking in there. I was like, man, this is a nice house. Proud of him. And I was thinking, man, what would I do if I lived here? And I was like looking around and really thinking about it. And I was like, man, everything that is inside of this guy's house, it's the same stuff that's inside my house. And the only difference is that inside my house, the stuff is closer together because my house is smaller. Now, don't get me wrong. It's nice to have a nice house. It's nice to have that space. But at the end of the day, like, I still got a sandbox. I got plenty to be happy about my damn self. And, I was never in danger of being envious of, when my friends win, there's no room for jealousy. If my friends win, I win. If my friend gets a big ass house, that's a dub for me too. You know. But I think I was gonna make a bigger point with that, and it's kind of escaping me now. But I'm seeing if I can find something here that. Why was I saying that? What the fuck is going on ever? I don't know, dude. This is what it means to be a retard. You don't chase thoughts too far. If they left you, maybe they left you for a reason. Like my ex, maybe she left me for a reason. But the truth is, if the reason has to do with me, then I'll find it through exploration within my sandbox and by the grace of God. If the reason had to do with her, which by the way, spoiler alert, when someone cheats, it always has to do with the other person. I'll say 99% of the time, just to for you fucking weirdo redditors out there, then that's not my business. You know, you can't control what other people are doing. Focus on the space between your own furniture and what you can do inside there. I'll say that. I don't think that's what I was gonna say, but that's just as good as of a message as what I was gonna say. So, woo, gonna be a great day today. Gonna be a great weekend. Got a lot of good shit coming up. Got a lot of fun shit coming up. I'm about to go hit the gym today. I'm excited to start seeing some of the weight leave my face. But yeah, man, chase joy, chase life, give your problems to God, build yourself a sandbox, don't overthink your way out of a better life, drink water, have heroes. And if you don't have heroes, I encourage you to start looking for some. A little cheat sheet for you. Like I said, religion. Even if you're not religious, I actually know and have seen a lot of people who are agnostic or atheists who will borrow a hero from religion. Jesus, Buddha, you see that a lot. Athletes, be careful with that one because a lot of athletes are shitty people. But when you find a good one, and it's also, I mean, you can have the if you trust yourself, you can have the discernment for somebody like Kobe Bryant, who's an imperfect person, but who has like this almost like mythical work ethic. You can kind of pick and choose. Like you don't have to completely endorse somebody to admire something about them. Look at all the white guys who love Kanye West for making Graduation. So, yeah, man, go with God. Blessed week. Go be retarded. Cheers.